Hey everyone, and welcome to my new tutorial. In today's tutorial, we are going to create this. Before we start, I want to mention that you can access the project files of this tutorial and every other on my Patreon page. This type of tutorial fits under the second tier membership. And without further ado, let's go. First thing we're gonna do is create a new composition. I will name this Infographics. We will use 1920 by 1080, 30 FPS and 10 seconds duration. This seems about right. Press OK, and we have our composition. First thing I want to do here is right click, new, and insert a solid. We will leave it a dark gray solid and we will use this color. Okay, and we can lock this layer because we don't want to mess with it anymore. Now what I will do next is import a simple picture that I've created, which is the colors basically. So just I have a pattern to work with. I don't need this one as well, I can lock it, and I will make sure to click here, shy, and hide this layer. The first thing I'm gonna do is start from the top, so I'll go with the text tool, click anywhere, and I'm gonna type like average growth performance in 2021. I'll select all, make sure that it's not all caps, but yeah, this looks better. I will align it to the center, and if you don't see a line window or paragraph window or any other window, you can go here and you can enable it easily, and then reposition it wherever you want. This is the workspace I'm going with. Also, what I'm gonna do is animate this text, so I can save the animation preset. I'll show you what I mean. So I will click on this layer, expand it, go to text, and press animate. We will use opacity, and we can add property and use position as well. So now I'm gonna move the Y position, let's say to about 24. I will leave the opacity for now at 100, just to see what we can work with here. I will expand this, go to the advanced, make sure to select based on words, because this is a long text. We can enable the offset, so I will click on the stopwatch here, and I will hold Ctrl Shift and right arrow to move, let's say, 30 frames. And I will make this 100. So now we get this animation. Now I can put the opacity to 0. I can actually minimize this, click on this and press U on my keyboard to show just these keyframes. Select them, press F9 on my keyboard and go to the graph editor. And I will make this snappy, like so. Maybe a bit here. And now we can see what we have. This looks about fine. Now we can expand this again. Make sure to click on the animator. Go to the animation and save animation preset, just so we can use this for future references. I've already saved one, but let's say I want to use this one. I will name it text animation. Save. So now we can use that preset on every other text that we have, which we will come to see later. We can minimize this, we can minimize this, and we are pretty much done with the top text. I can also make this hidden as well, just so we have more space to work with. So next thing I want to do is create the triangle and the text here. Now I will go to the shape, take the start tool, and make it, hold down shift and make it like this. I will go to stroke and set to none. We don't need any stroke. We will expand the content and polystar, go to the path and make it on 3 points. This way we get the triangle. Also, if the anchor point isn't centered, you can easily center it by holding Ctrl Alt or Command Option and hitting home on your keyboard. It centers it immediately. Now we can play around with this, with the size of this. Let's say maybe we want to make it smaller, like so. We can select this layer and hit S on our keyboard and make it scale it down a bit. We can zoom in here. We can align it to the center, maybe move it up a bit, holding down Shift, and position it somewhere around here. This looks a bit huge, so I will make it a bit smaller. Maybe a little bit more, let's say 34%. Position it up a bit. Okay, now this looks fine. Let me fit this up to 100. So we are done with this. Now what I will do next is select the text tool and type in the percentage that we want to animate. Let's say, for example, this is going to be 36.4. Now we will select the different color for this, maybe this purple one. I'll make sure to align this to the shape. We can select this, hold down Shift and select the text layer as well, and select the align bottom to make them aligned perfectly. Also, we can scale down this text a bit, just so it matches the size of that triangle. I think 40 looks, maybe 39. 39 looks fine. I will also rename this layer just so I know that it's a triangle. Make this fit up. Okay. So now we need to animate the 36.4. I will click on the layer, expand this, expand text. And now what I will do here is look for the slider control. Double click it. We can rename this just so we know we're working with numbers. Let's say we will type in numbers. And now that we have that effect, it's going to show up here. We will expand the effects and expand the numbers. We need to take the pick whip from the source text. If you don't see this here, if you're using some older version of Adobe After Effects, you can simply hold down Alt or Option and click on the stopwatch, and then you will find the pick whip here. And we will connect this pick whip with the slider. Now we've only connected the source text with the slider. We didn't do much, honestly. We can see that the value of this text is 0 now, because the slider is 0 as well. If we move this to, let's say, whatever number we want, we can see that it's changing. This is a round number. If we want to use decimals, let's say 1 decimal for example, we're gonna have to put some coding here. We will type dot value dot to fixed. And now, if we want to use, for example, 1 decimal spot, we will type in 1. And if we see here, we get the 1 decimal. So let's say we want to add the percentage sign, or any other sign that you want to use. We can simply type in plus, quotation marks, and put in the sign that we want to use. And there we have it. Okay, now that we've finished adjusting the text, we can animate it. Let's put this down back to 0. Slider is 0, it starts from 0%. We can move the time indicator to the first to 0 seconds, and we can click on the stopwatch for the slider. Now I will hold down Ctrl Shift and hit the right arrow to move, let's say, 40 frames, and I will make this 36.4. We can select these two keyframes, F9 to easy ease them. Go to the graph editor, and I advise you to make it like this because it looks smooth. Let's say, I don't know if you want to make it snappy or anything, but I think putting this one around there. Okay, I think this is gonna look fine. Okay, that looks good to me. Now we want to close this. As I was saying, we have already saved the animation preset for text. So I can go into effects and presets and type in the text animation that we've saved. As you can see, it's under the user presets text animation. I can select this layer, put the time indicator on 0 and double click on this. So we get the animation like the text here. Now we can expand this, can close this, go to the animator, range selector, advanced, and make it based on, let's say, characters. So we get something like that. Also, if you want, we can make it faster. Let's say 10 frames earlier, put it here. That looks about fine. We can close that, minimize this. We can select the layer, press U on our keyboard just to see where the keyframes are. And we can animate the triangle, for example. Let's say we can make sure that this is centered by pressing Ctrl-Alt-Home, as we did earlier. So now we can, let's say we want to scale it up. I will press S on my keyboard to open up the scale property. And let's say here, I want it to arrive around this time. I'll click on the stopwatch, go back to the beginning and make it 0. We can select them, F9 to easy ease, and make sure that this is selected, that the edit speed graph is selected when you're editing this. We can use the value graph, but maybe we will show it in some other examples. Select this keyframe and make it like so. Go back, fit this up to 100, and let's see, what do we have? We can offset this a bit, maybe here. This looks good. Now that we have our basis, we can start going to our circle. Okay, now let's select the ellipse tool here. Like so, hold down Shift. We can make it any size because we're gonna adjust the size later. We can see that the anchor point is centered. We can align it to the composition, make sure the whole circle is centered. And now we're gonna expand the contents, expand the ellipse, expand ellipse path. And we're gonna work with the size. Let's make it 250. And now we're gonna go to the stroke and make stroke 250. We can disable the fill here, or we can simply go here, put the fill to none, and put the stroke to, let's say, this color. It's going to be our purple one. Hit OK, and this is going to be our circle. We can minimize that, and minimize the ellipse. We have our circle. We will name this purple circle. So the next thing we want to do is animate the circle. We will hit Add and add trim paths, expand trim paths. We can put the time indicator on 0, and we can see how this is gonna work. We don't want it coming from this side. Put this on 0, put this on 0, and now we can see we need to use start. Okay, we can hit the stopwatch here, and let's see this number. I'm gonna select the layer, hit U to see where we need to go. It seems that the number ends here, so I will add another keyframe here. I'm gonna expand the slider here. Now I will select the pick whip from the start and parent it to this slider, so it animates according to our number. If we change the value of this number, this is going to change as well. Let me show you what I mean. I will select this layer and I will change this. You can see the circle size is changing as well with the number. I'll hit Ctrl Z just to undo that. Now basically we don't have to easy ease these keyframes because this is parented to that slider. So it copies the values of these two keyframes. Now if we see this animation, it looks something like this. Now that we've done that, we can minimize this, this. We can click on this layer and press U only just to see the keyframes. And what we can do now is hit Ctrl D on our keyboard to get the circle tool. Now we will name this, let's say, light cyan. And we will position it. We will select the layer, we can position time indicator on this keyframe and hit the opening square bracket on our keyboard to position it there on the time indicator. Now the next thing we want to do is hit U on this layer as well. We will disable this because we don't want this layer to be parented to any numbers. So we will hold down the Alt or Option and hit the stopwatch. Now the next thing we want to do is make this the same value as it was when it ended. So for example, in this case it's 36.4, and let's say we want to animate it to, let's say, 75%. So this is going to be our second circle. Now we will change the color of the stroke. We'll pick the, let's say, this color. It is fine because it's above. We will just position it below, and there we have it. This is our second one. Now we will need to work with these keyframes. I will select them, hit F9 to easy ease them because they're not parented to any slider. And this is the value graph that I was talking about. We can work in this graph as well. So let's say we will select this keyframe, hold down Shift, select the handle, and make it easy ease like that. And maybe put this handle here so we get that snappy feel. Let's see, what do we have? Now we can select this layer and hit Ctrl D or Command D on our keyboard, position it down, and rename it to, let's say, dark sign circle, and name this one circle as well. Now we will hit U on our keyboard to open up the keyframes, and we can position this on our time indicator the same way we did with the previous layer by hitting opening square bracket on our keyboard. So let's make the value of this on 75 and then make the value of the other frame 100. Now select the color. We're gonna use the second color, press OK, and this is what we have right now. If you feel like this is too slow, we can edit the graph always. Like, we can change this one, for example, like so, just to make it faster on the beginning. Maybe select this one as well and put it like so. Let's see, what do we have? So now we've finished animating our circle. It says 36%. Also, what's good about this, you can change the slider always on this number on the last position. Let's say hit U, go here, and make it, for example, bigger. You can play with the other ones as well, but if you want to make it like this looks fine. I'll hit Ctrl Z. I will minimize this. I'll select all three of these layers and press U to minimize them. Now we're going to create these dots and these squares that keep popping up. We don't really need the text layer and triangle anymore, so we can make them shy. We actually don't need these anymore as well, so we can hide them. So the next thing we're gonna do is hit Ctrl or Command N on our keyboard to create a new composition. We will name this dots to animate the dots. I will make this composition 120 by 30. We can leave it on 30 FPS and 10 seconds duration. Hit OK. So this is what we get. We can make this, let's say, 400 just to see what we're working on. Okay, first thing I'm gonna do is click on the ellipse tool, hold down Shift, and create one circle like so. We will disable the stroke. We don't need stroke on this. And we will enable the fill. We need like a white color, so we will use white color on this fill. I will select this and center it. I will open up the ellipse path. Maybe this dot is too huge. I'll use 5.5 on this size. Okay, we can minimize all of this. Now I will rename this and make it dot_1. So now what I will do is make sure this layer is selected, hit P on my keyboard, hold down Shift and hit T as well to open up the opacity together with position. We will go to the 20th frame, we can hold Ctrl Shift again and hit 2 times arrow on the right. We can click on the stopwatch to create the keyframe there, and then we can go back to the 0. Now we can set this. Let's say we want to move it here so it arrives from this point, let's say 4.8, and we can make the opacity 0. So now we get this animation. It looks kind of whack. We will select all of this. Press F9 on our keyboard to easy ease them. Open up the graph editor. Make sure the speed graph is selected. I will zoom in a little bit. And let's say we want to make it like this. Let's see how this looks like. That looks fine. Now that we have this animation, we can select this layer, Ctrl D on our keyboard to duplicate it. Hit U on our keyboard to open all of these keyframes. We can move 20 frames further and we can reposition this keyframe and we can make it, let's say, here around 75. Let's say 75. So now we get something like this. We don't want that. We'll put this layer on the 10th frame. Now we will see what value is this position right here. I will click on it, Ctrl C to copy this, and I will paste it here. So let's see, what do we have right now? That looks fine, but I want to make it snappy, so I will select these 2 keyframes, go to the graph editor, and let's say we will position this one here and this one around here. Let's see how this looks. We want to make it faster, so I'll go all the way. I'll put it here and I will put it here. So now we get something like this. This looks cool. Now we can simply close this and close the dots. Now we can insert this. We can go to the project and let's say insert the dots above everything here, above the average growth performance. We can see they are here, but they are below this layer, so I will select it and move it while holding down Shift to, let's say, around here. And we can see what do we have. So now we can like unhide all of these layers and see where the circle is coming. Say around here we want it to start animating, so I will position dots here. Let's see, what do we have. This looks about right. Now we can Ctrl D to duplicate this. We can rename it to, let's say, dots purple. We can rename this to dots light cyan. Now I will hold Shift and move this around. Let's say here. Let's see when this circle is coming around there. We can put it like so. But we can see the direction that it's facing is wrong. So we can simply right click this layer, go to the transform and flip horizontal. So now we get the same animation as here basically. And we're gonna duplicate this one, position it around, let's say here. I can hit P on my keyboard to open the position, and I will just move the Y position up to put it around, let's say, here. So let's see, what do we have. Okay, that looks fine. But we need to offset it a little bit more, maybe around there. We can rename this as well, make it dark cyan. If that's even a color, I'm not sure. Let's minimize this. So the next thing we're gonna do is hit Ctrl N on our keyboard and name this section 1. I will use the width of 200 by 100 height, and I will leave this to 30 and 10 duration. Hit OK. This is what we get. I will zoom in to about 200. Now I will select the rounded rectangle tool and I will simply do this. I will expand rectangle 1, rectangle path. I will deselect this so they're not linked. I'll make this 144, and let's say this is going to be 66. We don't need this anymore, so I will minimize all of this. I will name this rectangle. Make sure it's centered in the composition. That looks about right. Now I will change the color of this to some darker gray. This is the color we're going to be using. Let's animate this first. So I will make sure the layer is selected. Hit S on my keyboard to open up the scale property. I will move forward, let's say 20 frames. I will click on the stopwatch to create a keyframe. Go back to 0 and make this 0 as well. So let's see, we have this. I will select the keyframes, F9 to easy ease them. Go to the graph editor and make sure the speed graph is selected. And I will move this handle to the left. So we have this. Now that we've created this, that looks fine. We can select the text tool and we can type in the section 1. Now I will make sure that this is all caps. I'll make the size on 22 and we can simply center this as well. So it fits the box because the box is centered as well. Now I can simply go to my text animation that we had and I can put this time indicator on 0. Make sure the layer is selected, double click on the text animation, and now we get that as well. I will make sure that this is, let's expand this, text, and expand animator, range selector, advanced, and use characters. We can minimize that, and let's see what do we have here. Alright, now we will position the text here in the rectangle ends. I will hit the opening square bracket while this is selected. So let's see what do we have. That looks about fine. So I will minimize this, and this is going to be our animation for sections. I can simply close this, go back to the infographics. I will make sure to select the section 1 here, Control D to duplicate it twice, so we get 3 of them. My section 2 is going to be here, right? So our color is going to be different. It's not going to be purple like the section 1. So I'll make sure to select the eyedropper tool, and for example, I will go with that color. I will select it, copy this value, hit cancel, and open section 2, select this layer, click on the fill color and paste it there. So this is going to be our second one, and also we need to rename it on the section 2. So we can do the same thing for section 3. I will go to the eyedropper, select this color for text. I will copy the value, open the section 3, select it, paste the value here, and change this text to 3. So this is going to be our third section. Make sure this is centered again. Also for the section 2, make sure it's centered. Okay, so now that we finished that, we can close all of this. And let's start adding them. Let's put section 1, let's say above the dots. And we can position it, let's say, here. We can position it here, but we didn't move it actually. So I will move this to this place, like so. Let's see, what do we have? Okay, that looks nice. The next one is going to be section 2. I will add it above this one. And I will position it here. Maybe, let's see. Yeah, it should start there. I can move this to here. I'm gonna zoom in. You can reposition this if you want. Or maybe we can select this composition and we can hit P on our keyboard to see the value of it. It's 660. So I will put this on 660 as well, just to make sure it's there. Okay, that's our section 2. Let me fit this back up. Let's see what this looks like. And now we can add the last one. I will minimize this. Let's say section 3 above this. And we can position it, let's say here. I'll hit the opening bracket, square bracket. We can simply copy the value of the section 2 and just move it up. So let's see here. We will hit the P on our keyboard and make sure to hit the select section 3. Control C on position and then Control V on this position. And then maybe open these dots. To see it's 409, I will copy this value and I will paste it here. So there goes our section 3. And this is our animation. It's looking great if you ask me. Maybe we can make all these sections come in a bit earlier. Let's say section 3, section 2. I'm holding down Control and selecting them. Section 1, we can simply move them a bit earlier, like so. I will hit Control, or if you're using Mac, Command A on your keyboard, and I'll make sure to hit U and U again on my keyboard to hide all the keyframes. Now we need to add the outer glow to these rectangles. So I will select all 3 of these, and then I will go to the layer. I will find the layer styles and I will go with the outer glow. Now I will start with the section 1, let's say. I will open up the outer glow. Let's say I want to make the opacity 80%. I will take the eyedropper and let's say I will use this. And I want to make it around 17. And maybe range around 70. Yeah, that looks nice. It's not too flashy. So I will use the same thing for the other ones. I will go to this outer glow. We can actually copy this and paste it here. And just change the color. Let's say, what was it? This one? Or you can select it here on the circle, like so. I'll copy that one. I will minimize this, go to this, make sure it's selected, Control V, and let's say I'll pick the eyedropper and use this color. And that's it. We got the outer glow. So now we can select this layer. We can duplicate it by hitting Control D. I can simply move it down by holding Shift and repositioning it here. Let's say we want to put it around here. I will double click this and I will type in comments. I will make sure that this is centered. We can expand this, go to text, and then we can go to animator, range selector, advanced, and we will select characters. So it animates characters. So this is what we have. Maybe it's a bit too huge, so we can change the text value to around 40 pixels. Make sure to center it again. This doesn't look centered, so we will actually select these two and move it around here. I'm holding down Shift while I'm dragging this around. So yeah, this looks nice. Maybe if you feel like, let's say, this gap and this gap are not in the same way as these gaps, you can always play around with it. Let's say we will select all 3 of these and then all of these sections and dots, and we can simply reposition them however we like. Let's say around here. Yeah, this looks fine. So there we go. There is our full animation. We can simply hide this layer. We don't need this anymore. And that's it. We're done with this tutorial. I hope you learned something new. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.